the debt trap.
Dun, dun, dun.
Not knowing these six things can hurt you.
Mm-hmm. They can. Your credit score can impact so many different things and save you money in the long run. It shouldn't hold power over you. I don't believe that your things should own you. I don't think that you should work to pay for the things. I think that you should work to be free.
Tell us, what is debt and how does it affect how good you are with money?
With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's a life that we live. Suits and Scrubs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Suits and Scrubs, where we talk about a little bit of health,
A little bit of wealth,
and a lot of love. So I would like to introduce my co-host. For those of you who don't know him already, this is Mr. Zachary, SVP.
What's up?
He is our finance renaissance man. He has managed over $1 billion to date, and he has reached his Coast Fire number. If you don't know what that is, you'll have to check out our first finance episode to learn a little bit more. Fun fact about him today. So we already know that Zach is a cat guy, but his new obsession seems to be birds. And he is trying to talk me into potentially being a bird mom too.
I'm not talking you into being a bird mom. We discussed this because that poor bird will get eaten by 3 cats. But there is a bird online that it says everything is, what you doing? What you doing? And it gives its partners kisses like every one, and it's just the best. His name is Bleeker. So if you're watching Beaker, shout out to you. It's the sweetest bird though. And they mate for life. And when he goes and kisses on her head, she coos. She goes ooh, coos and caws. I just it's so crazy. Like if you give animals food, shelter, security, culture also blooms. For humanity, if you know those 3 things, that's how culture is formed. Same thing with the animals. Animals they just flourish. They don't have to worry about survival or anything like that. It's just really cool to see. And that probably could be a whole episode of itself, but I digress.
So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. That's Emily, MD, my wife, also co-host. I don't know which one's better, or which one's worse. She is double board certified in internal and BC medicine. She's exploring functional as well as aesthetics, functional medicine, that is. Fun fact about Emily. We are going to our first conference for functional medicine. We're super, super excited about that. In fact, we probably dedicate a whole episode on that, just what we learn, networking, hustle and bustle. Maybe we'll do some filming or whatever, do something different for once. Really excited about that. So back to you, Emmy.
So we always give you guys a little bit of a side story, kind of what we're doing, what's going on in our lives, giving you an update on our 30-day challenge.
For our 4-day followers. What was our 30-day challenge, just in case people missed that 2-3 ones ago?
Our 30-day challenge is regarding the gut microbiome and Akkermansia, which is a type of good bacteria that lives in your gut that's purported to have lots of health benefits. And so we are actually going to do our own stool testing, which will give you the details in the play-by-play with how that goes. We're using a test.
Oh, the editor gets a close-up of my face.
We're using a test that was created by Thorne, and we will see. I've heard it's one of the easier tests to do. It's less invasive, at least. So we'll let you know if that's true. And that way we'll kind of know what our baseline gut health looks like. And then we are planning on doing 30 days of Akkermansia supplementation. And then we'll probably test again afterwards and just see what things look like and let you know how we feel, if we've noticed any differences.
Yeah. If you guys want to know more about the microbiome, Akkermansia, there's a whole episode dedicated to this prior to. It's very important to understand from a health perspective. It is all the craze right now, especially in functional medicine. To put it very shortly, it's just harmonizing your body with your innards. Just to, pretty much. And also with the 30-day challenge, we did that on the first episode of season 2. We're in season 2. it's the Plinko chip. So it goes, and I swear it's rigged, but there's 1 through 4. I'm actually looking at it right now. It landed on the 4th one. So yeah.
So we'll give you an update next episode once we kind of start that process. But today is not a health episode. It's a wealth episode.
That's why I'm dressed like this.
You're looking very, very dapper, very handsome. In your suit. We're going to be talking about the debt trap.
Dun, dun, dun.
Not knowing these 6 things can hurt you.
Mm-hmm. They can.
So you're going to tell us more about that. But first, we're going to dig a little deeper in our first segment called Under the Microscope. Under the Microscope. In this segment, we take a deep dive into medical studies
and financial reports and break them down in layman's terms.
So I was telling Emily this earlier. I guess I always start with history on things. So I'm not a history buff at all, but I do think it makes sense to understand where things start from, originated, prior to, things like that. So I definitely want to give the history around debt. So in credit and all of this. So it first started in Mesopotamia. I probably butchered that. But I learned about Mesopotamia in 6th grade. I think one of my favorite teachers, Miss Bird, first I thought she was the hottest thing. She had this dark black hair, these red lips, like pale skin. She's like Snow White. Oh, that's not important.
Were you learning
I was
history,
learning. I was learning all kinds of things. But I remember we're talking about Mesopotamia. I think we had to do like clay stuff or whatever. But the reason why I bring up clay, so folks who are listening actually will probably remember this. They use clay tokens to represent goods and services that they owe. So about Mesopotamia, I believe it's in Egypt, around that area. Mm-hmm. I'm not a history or geographic person. So if I said that wrong, drop me a comment. Put me in my place. You guys love doing that. Anyway, so they use these clay tokens to represent goods and services, and then as history's evolved during the medieval time, there was a huge trade boom in Europe. And so that's when the banking institutions were created. And then after the banking institutions were created, there was the Industrial Revolution, which we're all well aware of, right? And that had an increased demand for credit. And what's interesting about history is a lot of things are usually applied to businesses, like business to business, or B2B is what we call it in the business world. And then there's an undercurrent, underwave in the 20th century, which created the idea of consumer debt. Think about consumer debt like your auto loan, your home loan, your credit card. And so I wanted to give some history about how that works. Why is it relevant? Well, I think it's just fun. So it's really not relevant, but it shows you how far back credit and debt and all of this kind of goes, right? And so looking at some stats from America, we are doing pretty well with our credit. This is surprising. To me, this was really surprising.
Yeah.
So the average household have a 718 credit score.
That is very surprising to me.
Yeah, that was surprising to me. The average credit card debt has increased pretty significantly. I think it was like $5,500. Now it's $6,600 and some change. I can read the board. It's $6,652. And guys, we always do research prior to, because we don't want to spit things that we don't know. And the consumer debt has increased over the years. So the average household has $103,000 of debt. I want to know where these households are, because I have way more than that. We have way more than that. But that's what the statistics say. So that's some fun facts about Under the Microscope, just to kind of frame, today's episode.
Yeah. Well, let's go to segment 2, which I have a feeling will also kind of lay you up to talk about our questions for today's segment. But
while Emily pulls it up on her phone, let me talk about this. So it's a reaction of a reaction of a reaction. So this is one of our favorite segments. You're going to see a lot more of these. These are very popular with you guys. So you guys like them. We're going to do them. Refactions.
Refactions. In this segment, we'll be reacting
and fact-checking
on viral content. Get it? Refactions.
I, however, personally never borrow money for anything in any circumstance. There's nothing I want that bad, ever. I want to be debt-free more than there's anything on the planet I want. And so I will never trade that because it's given me that much freedom. It's given me that much peace. And I'm convinced it's one of the reasons I've become wealthy is I don't have any stinking payments. However, personally, never.
Yeah. Was that the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry.
So give us your reaction.
Yeah. So Dave Ramsey, as you guys know, this is where I started. I did a whole episode. I actually attributed to him. This is where I started my personal finance journey. Dave is very, very conservative when it comes to debt. And a few things he says here I really like is he pretty much talks about how debt provides him a peace of mind. So sometimes you look at the spreadsheet, you look at the numbers, sometimes you just can't put a price on the peace and freedom and the psychology of money. You know, there's a lot of psychology around money. And pretty much what he's saying is he's wealthy because he doesn't have any payments, which arguably is pretty accurate statement, I would say. If you look at your loan, if you buy a house for $300,000, and let's say you have like 2, 3, 4%, you almost pay double that what the house is worth over the course of your lifetime. So if you look at your scoreboard and you earn $4 million throughout your life, and you're paying double for your house, that's taking away opportunities for other things. Mm-hmm. But if you take that money and you allocate it to other things to leverage yourself, there's an opportunity there. You can do arbitrage, which is taking a lower interest payment to a higher interest rate. So I can borrow money at 4%, but then my yield is like 20%. So you subtract that. And I will get into this later in the episode, but there's a lot of schools of thought around debt good, debt bad. And the Money Guy show, I love when they say this. Debt is just a 4-letter word, right? And so pretty much there's so much power in that. And I get what they're saying. It's just a word. And it shouldn't hold power over you. I don't believe that your things should own you. I don't think that you should work to pay for the things. I think that you should work to be free and to have choices. So I really resonate with that message today. So I thought it was a good place to start because we are getting some numbers and we are getting some nitty gritty here. So yeah.
Well, let's dig into the debt trap and maybe give us a little bit more background information and tell us what is debt and how does it affect how good you are with money.
Yeah, so a lot of people know what debt is, right, at this point, but I think it's good just to start the foundation of debt. So debt is where you apply for certain credit, and the financial institution, whether it's a credit card, auto loan, school, it looks at your number, which is called a FICO score, which we'll talk about that quite a bit. There's 2 scores out there. One's a FICO score and one's a Vantage Point score. I'm really going to focus on FICO score since it's been around the 1950s. It's been around forever. But everyone has a walking score on their forehead. Just imagine people going, I have a score.
And what's the difference between those two?
Well, the difference is one's been around for 1950s. The other one it's created back in 2006 with the 3 credit bureaus. It's kind of compete with FICO, if I'm being completely honest. Mm-hmm. And there's different data points that the Vantage Point score uses. So it's like Experian, TransUnion, and another one. I would just for simplicity of today, it's just focus on the FICO score.
Okay.
So how debt works is you go and you apply for a good and service, and you want to put it on credit on agreed upon interest rate based upon your agreed upon terms with the bank. And how that process works is you fill out an application. They'll ask you questions about your income, about your debt to equity ratio, and then they'll look through a lot of different parts of your credit score. Your credit score is a big indicator of how your relationship with the bank is and what you can ultimately qualify for. So, for example, if you buy a house, and let's say you have a really high credit score, maybe you take advantage of a lower down payment or lowest interest rates. There's a lot of things you can say about credit scores. I think it does punish people who don't necessarily have a good credit score. And if you look at the analysis of credit scores, it's all over the gamut. But usually, like the underserved communities have lower credit scores.
Makes it hard to get your way out if you don't
It
get
does.
any benefits.
It does. It does. And then that score does follow you. And there's some things that I want to teach you guys around how to manage those credit disputes. That's my bonus, by the way. I have 6 things, but the bonus is the credit disputes. I've been a victim of that, and I will absolutely walk through my own personal example. I am passionate about that. But yeah, so that's a little bit about debt, about how you apply for it, what they use. There's 2 things I do want to say else. There's a hard money line and a soft money line credit. So if you apply for credit, always ask that question. Are you hitting is it a hard line pull or a soft line pull? A soft line pull is they do a peekaboo and they look and see to make sure, based upon your credit score and your history and all that. Your hard line is a hard line hit, which can impact your score, which again, that's one of the 6 things I'll talk about in a minute.
So let's dig into the debt trap and tell us specifically what are those 6 things that if you don't know could hurt you.
Yep. So this is the heart of the episode. Those 6 things. So the first one is payment history, which reigns supreme. I put that in all caps on the board, which I know you guys can't see. This represents 35% of your FICO score. This is, are you making payments on time? Do you have a history of payments? Paying your payments on time is the biggest thing that you can do to drive your credit score and have favorable ratings. The second thing is the utilization matters. So utilization, that's just a fancy word of saying, if I have $10,000 of credit card debt, let's just use credit card, just to be simple. And I have utilization of 60%, which means I have $6,000 based upon my credit. Credit card companies, financial institutions, any creditor doesn't like that. That's a high utilization. So what they will do, and by the way, guys, my utilization has been high because I pay everything on my credit card for the points every single month, but I do pay it off. But sometimes it will say, your utilization is too high. I'm like, what are you talking about? I pay it off every single month. But I will say I have an 830 credit score. So follow my advice because I've done this for a very long time. And so utilization represents about 30%. So that's 65% between payment history and utilization. The third thing is the age of the credit accounts. So Laurie actually is the name of my camera. So we name our cameras. We do this every time. So this is Laurie, Betty, Karen. I'm looking into Laurie. So Laurie actually, my mom, she encouraged me to get a student credit card right when I opened up my first checking account before I went off to college. I'm glad she did that because it allowed me to create credit at a very young age. It wasn't a big limit or anything like that, but it allowed me to have. I still have that credit card open. I believe it's like 20 plus years at this point. And so a little fun fact about this, those really attractive cards with the high points usually have a yearly fee. And so I have a card now that I pay like $89 a month for a yearly fee. However, I may change that card, but in order for me to change that card, I probably have to shut that card down. Well,
And that'll impact your credit
it
score.
will. It will. And so you have to be very careful about what cards you get. And does it have that annual fee? And don't just sign up for the first card that has all these great points if they have an annual, fee, because the annual fee could be $100, $50, $300. Let's say you're not using it, then you should not be, you should not have that credit card.
What kind of benefits do you get when you pay an annual fee like that, and when do you think it's worth it?
Well, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis on that. You guys know that's my favorite term, CBA. In fact, it's funny because me and Emily were talking earlier, and I said, what would be helpful? And she says, a cost-benefit analysis? I'm like, yes. So, if people are interested in this topic, we can create a whole other episode based upon a cost-benefit analysis and credit cards and what the best credit cards. In fact, that's a very highly searched topic. And you just have to look at the points. Like, for example, I'm a world traveler, and I'm pretty much going to Japan next month, for free. This is filmed in February, so if you guys are watching this later, then I probably already went. But it's definitely beneficial based upon your own specifications. Did I say it right?
Specifications.
Specifications. I've always had an issue with that. Those words. But yes, based upon your own interest. Let me just say that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that you want cash back, or you want double cash back, or you have to do your own analysis. Let's say you drive a lot. Maybe gas rewards are better for you. That's where you kind of get into that. I digress. So that's 3. So the age. So the 4th one is credit mix is important. So I have a little story with this one.
Goody.
So everyone understands that I love Big Bertha. Do you want to tell the listeners who Big Bertha is?
Big Bertha is your Hummer.
That's right. So
I had to think about it for
about
a second.
15 years ago, I bought an H2. It's the second car I bought. My first car, I was 16 or 17. I spent $500 on it, which may not seem like a lot, but I'm making $5 an hour. So that was a lot for me. That was like, how many hours? 5, 10, 50, 100 hours. That was 100 hours of work. But yeah, I paid cash for it. And the thing is, like, a lot of people give me hell about it, but it was a mental thing for me because I was watching MTV with 50 Cent busting out with a yellow Hummer. And I'm not a car guy because I believe in wealth building, and usually wealth builders are not car people unless they are. And that's another story, another day. But I think cars are some of the worst investments. I'm doing that in air quotes because they're really not investments. But I told myself I will get that one day when I knew I made it. And so you can make fun of me for it if you want to. You can tell me it's bad for the planet, gas guzzles, yes, all that. I don't drive it. I probably put less than 1,000 miles a year on it. I've had it for I don't know how many years now, 15 years, and I'll always have it. It's going to be a good family car. Well, the reason why I bring this up is because I was looking for one, and I found one here, local to Charlotte, and I went into the car dealership, and I saw this beautiful yellow Hummer. I was so excited about it. Had low mileage on it, like 2 owners. I was super excited about, and I was going to buy it. I had no history of a car auto loan. And at this point, I was working in corporate, my finance job. I was making good money. And I went through multiple rounds of hard hits on my credit. And that's why this is so important to tie it back to number 4, which is the credit mix. And since I didn't have an auto loan, I was unattractive as a candidate. And it declined me 6 times until I got the last one. And this was when interest rates are like 4%, 5% maybe. Do you know how much interest they were going to charge me? And my FICO score is probably in the 700s plus at that time.
How much?
It was like 23%.
Gosh.
And my payments were insane. And I remember the car salesman right behind the desk said, "Oh, it'll be a real gift if they can just approve this loan." And then he said that. I was like, "What are you talking? What?" And then I got that number. Oh, he was so mad when I walked away because we spent there a long time. And he was trying, like, no knock to him. But I was just like, dang, just because I don't. Fast forward, I did get my car, but that wasn't the one. And this is why I think God has a plan. I got a better deal. It was when gas prices were $4 a gallon. It was the end of the year, which they say if you buy cars in the year, that lots want them off because of taxes. They don't pay taxes on them. Mm-hmm. And so they gave me an incredible deal. In fact, the car salesman told me I didn't make any money off of this. Just telling you. They bought my POS Explorer at the time. And I drove off that thing. And I worked for a bank, and I still didn't have an auto loan, but I applied for the employee version of the auto loan. And I got an incredible rate, lower. So that's why I got slow down, take your time. So that was interesting. I had great credit. I had a credit card. I had, a good job, and they still declined me for a damn auto loan. So that's why your credit mix is important. New credit is I don't think you should always apply for new credit, but new credit is 10%. So are you getting a new loan? Are you buying a new house? Are you buying a new vehicle based upon credit? All of that. So that's also 10%. And then the last secret or things that you should know is understanding, make sure you regularly monitor your credit report. They are free. And at this point in the day, this is different from how it used to be. But back in my day, 10, 15 years ago, you actually had to go to Experian and TransUnion and pull your credit report and review everything. Now things are gotten so creative that credit card companies have them published now. They'll tell you your FICO score. And in fact, they'll send you alerts if they have a new credit request. Now, it takes a while. But you still, that should not substitute for making sure you evaluate your credit report. Identity theft is a thing. And I also have a story on the bonus. So the bonus I have is disputing credit. There's a lot of things you can do to dispute credits. So about 5-6 years ago, I was late on my Verizon payment. Let me tell you this. Where's Laurie? There she is. Verizon does not play. If you're a month or two late, they'll push that thing to a credit bureau organization and have a blemish on your account. I got a FICO score view, and I saw it. And I went from a 800 to a 710. I said, "What in the hell happened to my credit score?" I thought it was some fraud. And I pulled up the information. What happened was I shut down my credit card because I had this tendency of leaving my credit card open to a bar, and I always do that. That's why I always, when I buy a drink, or if I'm at a bar, close out. You don't leave it open, close out.
It's a benefit of having the Apple Pay or Apple Watch.
That's
so you
true.
don't have to get the credit card out.
That's true. So I don't ever leave my cards anymore overnight. So it was just a lapse. And then I did a lot of research on this. And first thing you want to do is actually call the company and say, "Listen, I didn't know this happened. I'll pay it in full. Please get this off my credit report immediately." And sometimes they will say no, which is a pain in the you-know-what. In this example, they did say no. And I said, "Well, if you look at the history of my account, I've always paid. So please make sure, you go through." And they did. And they went through and they said, "Yes, you always paid." And they did take it off. But there's an escalation process you can take. You can actually apply. If you just Google it, you're like, how can I remove this off my account after the creditor doesn't say? You can dispute it, and I do recommend disputing that. And if you're late on payments, call the creditor and say, "Listen, whatever the issue is, explain it to them." Now, if you ask them every month, they're not going to do it every month. But make sure you really monitor that. Everyone knows their own financial situation, so that's so important because your credit score can impact so many different things and save you money in the long run. So you want to be very responsible with your credit score. And I can get more into that later.
Well, give us a little breakdown for those who don't really know kind of what the ranges are for credit scores. What's considered a good score? What's considered a average or intermediate? What's bad? What's the danger zone?
Yeah. So excellent credit is 800 plus. That's a pretty easy one. Very few people actually have 800. Do you know your credit score? Mm-hmm. What is it?
It's over 800.
Oh, so we got some double 800 credit. Mine's the highest it's ever been, 830. I checked it today just because I wanted to see what my credit score was before this episode.
Well, you make us both very aware of finances and what we're spending. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Is being, being knowledgeable and aware of what your number is and how to make it better, which you're telling everybody how to do. So
yeah, and the thing is,
it works.
No one has any reason anymore not to own their credit score. There's so much information out there, and it's free. So definitely take advantage of that. In fact, if you apply for a credit card, you should ask them, do you have free credit reporting? And and by the way, back in my day, it was free karma or creditscore.com, and they used to have $10 a month where they would protect you and send you. Now it's now that benefit is ingrained in all the credit card, and they do it for free.
You can see it on your banking apps.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It's interesting how technology has replicated. So $799 to $740 is very, very good. $739 to $670 is good. My recommendation is you don't want to drop below 700. I think 700 is really where you start to impact your interest rates. Not all. So there are some government organizations, especially in the home loan space, which is very, very important to understand. I think it's Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, I'm not going to give history on that, but just put it in a little pen that they drive a lot of the mortgages, like the FHA loans, which is the Federal Housing Association, I believe. Definitely spot check me on that. That's why you can qualify for such a low down payment, because it's government backed, which is a very popular program. But that's not the point of today. But it is important to know that. And then anything below 670, that's when you get in the danger zone. So 679, I believe, 669 is fair to about 580. 570 to 300 is poor. And it's sad about that, because sometimes if you are in that poor rating, it takes you forever to build that up. But if you're financially responsible, you budget, you save appropriately, you monitor your credit reports, you're not overextending yourself. I know that I feel like the American culture, or the American society, is very materialistic. It's part of the capitalism, which we talked about in the last episode: capitalism, socialism, minimum wage, and all that. And so you just want to make sure you monitor what that looks like for you and be responsible with your payments. Now, if you have gone into the danger zone, maybe I'll do an episode on that. Like, how do you get out of that danger zone? There's a lot of things that you can do. And, like some people declare bankruptcy to start over, which I think takes 7 years. I'm not recommending that, but that's a strategy. Some people just take a while and work with their creditors and say, hey, listen, I'll pay, let's say you owe $2,000, I'll pay $1,000, get this off my credit and help me expunge it, and that way you really want to work with your creditors and do what you can to get there. I think that's just an option, to consider. So yeah.
So low credit scores can definitely, as you mentioned, make it difficult to borrow money sometimes. Is there anything else that makes it difficult to borrow?
I think that, yes, low credit scores, but I think based upon your credit score, it can drive the interest rates that you can have, and it also can influence the down payments you have. So really, it's just the credit score that impacts that. Now, some credit unions, this is why I'm a huge fan of credit unions. They can play by their own rules a little bit. They can have lower interest rates on auto loans, but these big box banks usually have to have very specific, because you don't want to discriminate to people. Say, well, I made an exception for you, but you get 4% or you get 8% or whatever. Mm-hmm. But credit unions can have that relationship with people, so that's something to really explore. So if you are on the lower side of the credit score, you're building up your credit, or you don't have any credit, I strongly recommend always going the credit union route. Yeah, that's for sure.
Good advice. And anything else that you can tell people on, say you need to borrow money, whether you have a big purchase or you want to buy a house, you need a car. What are some recommendations you would give to avoid hurting your credit score?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If you are in the line or in line to buy or make a big purchase, you definitely don't want any new credit. You want to make sure your credit is completely outstanding. I think recently you and I applied for like 4 or 5 different credit cards based upon our businesses. I would not recommend that before buying a house or buying a car. Having it really goes to square one. So we talked about this in a prior episode, but doing your budget, which this is all, it seems like it's common sense, but you'd be surprised. How many Americans just don't know where their money is going? I believe in a zero-based budget, which we talked about in our budgeting, what to do before, financially, or after, or whatever. Make sure you understand what every dollar is going, and then do analysis every month and see what you're doing. I think that's important. I think what's also important is making sure you're managing and not overextending yourself. So if it's great to have a lot of open lines of credit, I think that there's some school of thoughts that don't think that, making sure you have access to capital in the event that you need it.
Probably depends on who you are and how good you are at paying those off.
Exactly. And so if you go to SusanCrowsPodcast.com, I do have a staircase to wealth, what you should do in what order. The first thing I tell everyone to do is 3 months of emergency fund, which is very similar to Dave Ramsey, but I'm a little bit more aggressive because I do think that especially in this time, I think people should really have 3 months of emergency fund before they start investing in themselves and then paying down debt. That's the first thing you do, because like if people are overextending themselves on credit, that really speaks that they don't have an emergency fund. So that's important to make sure that you're in line with that. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I would recommend to people to ensure that they have a successful and they can strategize against their credit score.
How would you tell people how to be judicious with their money, or paying back what they owe? What recommendations would you give?
Yeah, I think that always make the minimum payment. That's the most important thing. Make sure you don't want to pay anything late. Like what's the number one on the credit score we talked about?
Oh gosh. Making your payments?
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
What's the percentage of that though that impacts your credit score? Don't look at the screen.
36, 35?
35%. So 30, that's good. I'm making sure you're paying attention. You're not just getting through the questions and
I don't know. I was going to be quizzed on this.
Well, you got to pay attention, girl. I'm gonna wake you up. So 35% of utilization is the number one thing for credit score. What's the second?
I don't remember. I'm going to have to cheat and look at our board. If this will work. Credit utilization matters.
Exactly. So you asked me that question, what can people do? Look at their utilization. Make sure you're not overutilized.
Keep it down. And what percentage?
30%.
30%.
Yeah. And I've heard this. I don't follow it, but this is what some people say. Some people say sometimes you can just, you show responsibility when you have a lot of money not a lot of, like just money in your checking account, which you can pay off your credit card. You pay the minimum payment and more, but you leave like a $500 or $1,000. Well, you could do that, but I don't like paying interest. So you go do that, my friend, and I will not pay interest. I have a goal that I pay as least interest as possible.
So we've talked a lot about paying down debt and a lot about credit score. I still am interested to hear kind of your opinion on, because you've also mentioned, having several lines of credit and how it can be beneficial to you. So is debt good or bad? What do you think?
Is debt good or bad? This is such a healthy debate. So all my Dave Ramseyers out there, I did actually develop a graphic. So you are listening on the podcast. This will be up on the screen. I have pros and cons of debt is good, debt is bad. So let's go through debt is good. So there's 4 pros with debt. One is access to capital. So remember that thing I was saying about debt arbitrage?
Don't quiz me again.
Yes, I am. Play it back to me.
So you can get a higher interest rate, but you can take money out at a lower. You were initially at a lower interest rate. You can take money out, but it'll be at the cost of being at a higher interest rate. Ish?
No. Try it again. Flip it.
What? Just tell us
Flip
what it is, because I'm gonna
butcher
I'm gonna
it.
butcher
We got all the time in the world. This is the whole point of the podcast.
So you have
Give me a real life example.
I mean, I was thinking that you were saying that you have an existing loan that's at a lower interest rate, but you need to have additional funding.
Okay, I don't want to confuse you about it. So debt arbitrage, again, for the second time today, is taking interest from a lower with expecting to have higher yields. So a lot of real estate investors do this. So let's say they do, they take a HELOC out, and the HELOC is, I don't know, like, don't quote the guys. I'm just making it up. I'm not saying the rates now. But let's say that you have a 3% on your mortgage payment, which we have about 2.5% on this house. Let's say we decide to take equity on this house, but it's 6.5%.
Yes.
But then we invest it in the stock market, which is, I don't agree. I think that's over leveraged, but we think that we're going to get 20%.
Gotcha.
So 20% minus 6.5% is, so yeah. So then
So technically, you still are taking something from that was a lower interest rate,
Yeah.
and you're taking money out at a higher interest rate, but you are putting it into something that you think the yield is going to be higher.
Exactly.
So I was halfway there. I just
You were
didn't-
halfway there.
Didn't take it all the way home.
I think that when you said higher interest rate to a lower interest rate, I was like, well, why would you wouldn't do that? I think you knew. So that's one of the biggest things: access to capital, leverage for investments, which we just applied to that example. Third is build credit history. So Dave Ramsey does not like debt. He doesn't. He says that FICO scores means I love debt. But why you love debt? You're paying interest to someone to get richer, which is not wrong. It's not wrong. But yeah, I think building a good credit history will allow you to leverage yourself even more. I mean, we're a great example of that. We have multiple real estate properties, and we are leveraged, but we're not over leveraged. We're actually very conservative based upon what we could get. So that's something to think about. This is interesting, but interests are usually tax deductible. So we're just finishing our taxes. Unless you're an entrepreneur, there's two really big things that gives you deductibles. One is having dependents, children's, maybe parents that live with you. But these are the two areas that you can have the most tax breaks from. So your interest is usually tax deductible. And the government that does that is because it's good stimulation for the economy. So if you get debt, they want to reward you for it because sometimes it creates jobs. And then last one is smooth income fluctuations. So this is where you analyze how your debt is, and you can offset that based upon your income. So you have, let's say you are an entrepreneur and you make 10,000, 10,000, 3,000. And in that example, I think you should do what? Have an
emergency fund.
How long?
3 months.
There you go. She's getting it, y'all. She's getting it.
I can't read your mind, honey.
No, well, you're getting there. So the cons is debt good? Is debt good? So the cons of that is there's risk of over leveraging, right? You don't want to overextend yourself, which we talked about at great lengths. Interest costs, it does cost money to take money out. So that's something to think about. Your impact of cash flow. So, I owe Jimmy, I owe Pam, I owe the bank, I owe this, and then I have a high salary, but I'm only seeing this amount of money, but I owe everybody, and then they all expect interest rates. Not a good thing. Mm-hmm. I don't recommend that. The potential for default, which that will follow you, that will inhibit your ability to access more debt. And then we talk about psychology and money, but sometimes people have stress and anxiety about having debt. And that's what Dave Ramsey, that's what we opened with today. There's a psychology around that. So is debt good? Now, debt is bad. Debt is bad. So the pros are there's financial independence, which if you know anything about my DNA, I'm all about some financial independence. That's why I'm a big part of the FIRE movement, which is financial independence. Retire early. Yes. Yes. Savings and investments. You can take all the money instead of paying interest rates. You can actually put that in investments and savings, which I think that's a good. You have overall reduced risk, which absolutely you can. Freedom of choice. So we're a big financially free household. That's what we believe in. In future episodes, we'll talk more about that once things are materialized. We try to move in silence on things, especially these big things, but that is an area that we'll heavily explore. And I know a lot of people are interested in that. And emotional well-being. You can't put a price on just not owning anything to anybody. If you just sit in your home and you don't owe anyone anything, yes, you got to pay taxes on it, but you're like, hey, I don't owe anyone anything, Some of the cons, there's limited opportunities. The biggest con I see with debt is bad, is slow wealth accumulation. So I said this earlier. I started with Dave Ramsey. He doesn't believe in debt, but it's so slow. It's like watching paint dry. Mm-hmm. Dry. For me, this is why I had not pursued that strategy. It is slow. It's a very slow wealth accumulation. It is. It's delayed gratification to the nth degree. Your credit score is impacted. That is a con. So if you don't have any credit, you don't want credit, this is not a bad thing. But I think not having a credit score is a bad thing. You have mixed tax benefits. So you can complain, yeah, I pay all this interest and all this other stuff, but yeah, you do get tax benefits from that. We just talked about like those are the two biggest areas if you're not an entrepreneur that you can get tax breaks on. The opportunity costs, which I'm a huge fan of opportunity costs. So I'm sitting here. If I believe in the Dave Ramsey way, if I look at my net worth, excuse me, if I follow Dave Ramsey, I would probably have 1/4 of my net worth. I would. And so we did our net worth. We do it every single year. I strongly recommend everyone. I do have a template that I will be sharing on our website. Don't go out there and create your own. Why not just enter numbers? And I mean, pretty much because we hit millionaire status by 35, it's because I believe in debt and to leverage debt in a responsible way. So that's my closing thoughts to folks. Manage your credit. You got to do what's right for you, ultimately. I'm a firm believer in that. And I do believe that debt can be very, very, very good because I tripled my net worth based upon my own ideology. Because I love Dave Ramsey. I really do, but it was so slow for me. I wanted to really accelerate my wealth and to create opportunities. And now I'm not even 40 yet. I'm starting to see the benefits, these fruits of these labor that I spent so much time and energy and nourishing and being a landlord and investing. And it's been a lot. It's very stressful on us, but I'm really starting to see those benefits. And those benefits are, I'm plucking the fruit from the tree now, which I could wait longer. It could get ripened and get more juicy, but we have other passions, other interests.
Yeah, we've been together for 6 years now, and I feel like we're finally starting to see the fruits of that labor, the shared labor. I think you've been at this much longer than I have. But lots of gems today. I'm going to go take this and study so that I can answer, answer your questions.
I'm going to start quizzing you because I know how my wife works. So we'll have the conversation and I'm holding her accountable to these financial topics because these financial topics, she doesn't care, she doesn't.
It's not that I don't care.
But it's not her interest, but if I started talking about plastics and the endocrine disruptors within the microbiome of the fiber of your DNA that could impact, that can make you walk on your hands, all of a sudden you're like, woo, let's do it. Ow! Like she's a woo girl on top of a bar. but I'm gonna start doing that.
It doesn't come easily to me.
No, and that's fine. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I just want to help you and educate you because knowledge is power. That's the message I have for people. So if you listen to today's episode, a lot of people know this stuff already, but hopefully I put it in a way maybe you thought about differently. But knowledge is power. What these 6 things you won't know will hurt you. Plus a bonus, which is credit disputes.
Credit disputes.
Did I go through that?
Yes.
Yes, I did. Okay.
Yep. Your Verizon snafu.
Right. And I also talked about my auto loans. So this funny, I know we're digressing here, but this is a shorter episode. Yeah, someone like me who's very responsible, very financially savvy. I work for a flipping bank and I didn't get an auto loan. Are you kidding me? Yes, I said that. Yeah, and it's a real thing, y'all. I've been through it. And it wasn't that long ago. 15 years, I guess that ain't that long ago. Anyway.
Well, should we talk about the next episode?
Yeah.
Next health episode coming to you, we're going to be talking about the controversial topics of weight loss. Lots of controversial topics. So tune in to our next episode.
I'm excited. I actually have not seen their script yet. So yeah.
So we'll have lots of back and forth with that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, as always, a little health,
little wealth, and a lot of love, and some quizzes. Bye, guys.
Bye.
He's on the hustle, she's on the grind. There's no time to kill. From saving lives and new deadlines, and there's some holes to fill. With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love. That's the life that we live. Suits and scrubs.